for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K, S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro,
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur.
the sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the ball!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement, et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, le 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Matt Ohayon with you live from home, not from the new Sick Podcast studios down in Saint Laurent. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, a leading asset-light 3PL that's driven to be different. From cross-border freight between Canada, USA, and Mexico to coast-to-coast shipping in both Canada and the United States, Energy moves it all. They're fast, reliable, and powered by tech that delivers smarter logistics. If you need a real partner in transportation, contact the team at shipenergy.com and see how Energy Transportation Group is changing the freight game. You haven't really played poker until you've played at Playground, voted Fan Choice Best Poker Room at the 2025 Global Poker Awards. Enjoy free food free drinks at every table, free food at cash games, and daily tournaments, plus the biggest events in the game, like the World Poker Tour and WSOP Circuit. And don't miss your shot at the world record bad beat jackpot, now closing in on over $1 million. Just minutes away from downtown Montreal, across the Bercier Bridge, this is Playground. We're also brought to you by Bittt Tibi beer. Bittt Tibi has launched their new Ultra Lager, a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer perfect for those cool fall days with only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, and 4% alcohol per can. Available in packs of 6 and 12 in grocery stores and dépanneurs across the province of Quebec. Ultra light and ultra refreshing. And of course, by Betway, go all the way with Betway. Get a free bet up to $200 if your first bet loses. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. Offer is available only for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. Offer is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 years or older, and please play responsibly. All right, everyone, we're here. Welcome to the weekend, and we're on the eve of the Montreal Canadiens' last preseason game, or should I call it the last preseason boxing match, maybe. That's to take place tomorrow night, that being Saturday night, against the Ottawa Senators from the Bell Centre in Montreal. Let's bring in my usual Friday guest to tee up the season and tee up this game. He is my usual Friday guest. His name is Stu Cowan. Stu, how we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Probably a lot better than how some Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators are feeling after what was Tuesday nights, or was it Monday night? Whenever it was earlier in the week, the insanity of that hockey game that brought back the old saying that I went to a boxing match and a hockey game broke out.
Well, the Senators started the fights and the Canadiens ended them. They won all of them.
Well, that's it. So we're going to talk about that. But first, we're going to begin with the hot news of the day, which was brought on by 2 contract extensions elsewhere in the league, that being of Jackson Lacombe in Anaheim and Luke Hughes with the Devils. So a lot of people are now talking about Lane Hutson. All the spotlight is there and on that contract negotiation. Let's start here. I mean, Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts said that it's going to be somewhere between 9 and 10 million. He doesn't expect it to go too far from Luke Hughes and Jackson Lacombe. When you heard that, what was your initial reaction?
Well, I think a lot of people, Montreal hockey fans' reaction might have been Jackson who? It's not playing in Anaheim.
That was mine.
You don't get to see these guys a lot. Jackson Lacombe, second-round pick, 39th overall in 2019. Big defenseman, 6'2", 205 pounds. In 2 seasons with Anaheim, he has 60 points, and Lane Hutson had 66 points in 1 season with the Canadiens. So, talking about $9 million, I think the Canadiens, I think Kent Hughes would have wanted to keep Lane Hutson below the $9.5 million that Noah Dobson earns, the same way that he wanted Yuri Slafkovsky and Cole Caulfield to stay below the $7.875 million that Nick Suzuki makes. But after these contract signings, I don't know. I mean, it's Luke Hughes $9 million, maybe took a little bit of a hometown discount that was continue playing with his brother there. Jackson Lacombe, 8 years, $72 million, a lot of money. It sort of depends. I mean, the ball is sort of in Lane Hutson's court. The Canadiens hold the upper hand right now, just the way, he's not eligible for an offer sheet or stuff like that, or even arbitration at this point. But the Canadiens, I mean, if they were to offer him the same contract as Lacombe, 8 years at $9 million, that's $72 million. It's a lot of guaranteed money, right? For a young guy, a lot of money to leave on the table. But I'm thinking it's probably going to take $10 million a year to get Lane Hutson to sign for 8 years with the salary cap going up the way it is. I think that's what it's going to take at least to get him to sign an 8-year contract.
And you know what? My reaction to that, if he did sign an 8-year, $10 million contract, would be, that's fantastic. It's fantastic because you would expect him to only get better. Yes, you never know, but when you have a piece like Lane Hutson, obviously you're never going to let that go. A lot of people would, if you ask them this question before that report from Elliot Friedman, comes out, they're probably thinking 11.5, 12 even. But it's, there was a great article put out by Marco D'Amico, who basically laid out how Lane Hutson, he's fantastic on the ice and fans love him, but when it comes to the business side, he doesn't really have all that much leverage.
Not at this point, no. That's why you wonder if he might sign a bridge deal like what PK Subban did, bet on himself. That's what PK did. He won a Norris Trophy, and then he got $9 million a year on his next contract. That was a while ago before the salary cap is what it is now. But you look at like Kaprizov, I should say, signing $17 million a year for 8 years in Minnesota. That's fantastic for him.
Yeah,
but it's going to be hard for Minnesota to win. One guy making that much money, it doesn't leave much to go around to other players, right? And we've seen that happen with other teams who pay their top stars. Toronto, an example, all the top guys making all that money, it doesn't leave a lot for below that. So, and Jeff Gorton has spoken also about, agents talk about the percentage of the cap, and his Hudson's percentage might not be as high as what Suzuki's percentage was, and he signed all that stuff. But as Jeff Gorton has said, there's also the dynamic in the locker room. If you have a guy, you have a Lane Hutson, let's say they give him $13 million, and you're, Nick Suzuki going, man, this guy's making almost twice as much as me, and I'm captain of the team. And that stuff is true. That's real stuff in the locker room. Guys, it's there's pride, there's ego, but for me, for a young guy like Lane Hutson, 21 years old, if the Canadiens were to offer him $10 million a year for 8 years, $80 million, I don't know how much life changes if you're making $80 million or if you're making $70 million. I'd love to find out. Probably not that much. I think you can you're set for life financially. You basically buy whatever you want, live whatever you want, drive whatever car you want. But I think that's what it comes down to with Lane Hutson. Like, is he willing to take maybe a little bit less to make it easier for the Canadiens to continue to build going forward? Because there's going to be more. Demidov is going to be coming up for a big contract too, right? And so you got to and all those things I think sort of factor in. So for Lane Hutson, it's going to be a case of, does he want to just get as much money as possible, like what happened with Minnesota with Kaprizov? And that's fine. He's entitled to do that. It's an open market. Players, it's a short career. Try and make as much money as you can. Whereas Lane Hutson may be willing to take a little bit less to keep that dynamic in the locker room, like we were talking about. Like, it's what's most important to him. So we'll see moving forward, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was to sign a bridge deal and then bank on himself and see if he can get more. But for a guy who's not that big, you got to factor in you're one injury away or a Kirby Doc hit away or from blowing out a knee or something like that. And when that money's NHL contracts are guaranteed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of money to leave on the table for a guy that young. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
I'm super interested because, there's three scenarios. There's the Kaprizov scenario where you take as much money. There's a team-friendly deal, and then there's the bridge deal. Mm-hmm. And if I had to rank them in terms of order of, what's likely to happen, I would say team-friendly deal 1, bridge deal 2, and team-friendly deal has this negative connotation of, it's bad for the player. A team contract could be good for both parties.
Yeah, development isn't linear. We've seen that with Juraj Slafkovsky, right? Lane Hutson, you would expect him to have another great season this year, but it also wouldn't be a shock if he had a bit of a sophomore slump and tailed off a little bit. There's no way, like after Lacombe signed 8 years at $9 million, there's no way that Lane Hutson's going to take less than that.
Yeah.
But if he took the same contract, that would work well as far as the Canadiens. It would keep him a little bit under what Noah Dobson's making, keep their salary structure in order that way. And it would give the 21-year-old $72 million guaranteed dollars moving forward.
Well, and also, with the cap going up, it just leaves the Canadiens room to add, down the road. I'm saying in the off season, in the upcoming off season, in 2 off seasons, another $10 million, $9 million, $11 million player. Hell, Connor McDavid's going to be a free agent. Doesn't seem to be signing. So, maybe you take a run at him. Obviously, I'm saying tongue in cheek, but the idea is the same, that it just gives you that space to just add that other piece that you're going to need to bring this team along and, and remove yourself from, still being in a rebuild to, okay, now we've got the final piece. We could grow together. We are going to be a perennial contender from here going forward. When in the case of Hutson, I don't know, because they're so good, the Canadiens, as good as they've been with being open with the fans and the media, they've also been very good at keeping things very hush-hush at the same time.
Yeah, they don't
really struck the perfect balance right now.
They won't discuss contract talks, which is smart from a management standpoint. And nothing leaks. Like, remember when Philip Danault, it leaked out the offer that he turned down, which really upset Philip Danault because it wasn't leaked from his side. And that he was really upset when that came out. That doesn't happen now with the Canadiens, right? They nothing leaks. They don't talk about what they're offering guys until after the contract is signed, and then they'll discuss it a bit. But you look at the deals like the Suzuki at 7.875 and Cole Caulfield at 7.85 are bargains right now, right? Slafkovsky at 7.6. The Canadiens took a risk on him, right? They gave him that money, and it's up to him now to prove that he's worth what the Canadiens thought they were worth at that point. And for Lane Hutson, it's the same thing. If they give him that much money after only 1 year, it's a lot of money, right? Based on a 1 year performance. And how he goes on moving forward. And that deal could look like a bargain moving forward too. But that's sort of, as the salary cap goes up, somebody's going to, Connor McDavid's going to get whatever he wants, basically, for the max. But again, with him, it's going to be, does he want that max dollar? Or does he want to do what Sidney Crosby did? Sidney Crosby is signed for $8.7 million, his jersey number. He's worth a lot more than that, but he's done that so the Penguins would have money to build around him. So with McDavid, it's going to be interesting to see with him moving forward. Is he just going to go for the top dollar possible, like what happened in Minnesota, or is he going to accept a little bit less to help build a team that can win the Stanley Cup? And that's the way of the world with the salary cap. Teams with the highest paid player in the league usually don't win the Stanley Cup.
Well, that's it. So when you look at Lane Hutson's case, just seeing from how he carries himself, I don't know how involved he is in the negotiations, but you just see him, and you see a kid who loves hockey and loves to play hockey, but you could tell that above that, when you don't want to minimize him, above that, he does want to win. He's made of the right stuff, and he's probably exactly what you want when you're thinking of prototypical hockey player. I'm talking attitude and how they carry themselves.
Yeah.
He's number one at the top of the list of what you want. So that being said, I am really leaning towards, based off of obviously no information, that he will take something in the area of 9.5 to 10.5 million. If it goes up to 11 million, I'm also not going to lose any sleep over it. Honestly, he brings such value to the team, and he's worth it. When you have a superstar like you have him in the palm of your hands, you can't just let him go and let this thing, boil over. It's not going to get to that, because also, I saw someone make the equivalency of that it's I don't know if Elliot Friedman said it, but they basically said in his words that it's on the 5-yard line. They just both sides need to get together and just punch it into the end zone for this whole thing to come together.
I mean, I talked about Noah Dobson at $9.5 million. He got that contract was signed when he was at the Islanders sign and trade deal. And the reason the Islanders didn't keep him, and Matthew Darsh spoke about this in a story in The Athletic with Pierre Lebrun, saying is that they basically didn't feel he was worth what he was asking for. They thought he had gone above what they were willing to give him. He said there was no hard feelings. He said, I didn't take it personal. That's something he had learned from Julien Brisebois when working with him in Tampa Bay. Something Marc Bergevin never learned when he was GM of the Canadiens, because it always became personal, as I mentioned earlier with the Philip Danault situation. So they traded him, and the Canadiens overpaid for him because right-hand defensemen, top 4 right-hand defensemen with size in the prime of their career don't become available very often, right? So they were willing to pay a little extra, more than what the Islanders are willing to give him to get that guy, which is fine. And they went out and they got him, and I think he's really going to help this team. So for me, if the Canadiens were to offer him the same contract that they got Dobson at $9.5 million, you're talking about team friendly. I don't necessarily think that's team friendly. I think that's a fair offer. That's a fair offer. Noah Dobson, you have been in the league longer, have a better idea of what you're getting. Bigger body guy, less likely to get injured, although Lane Hutson did play every game last season, never got hurt. To me, that's a fair offer, a really fair offer. And if he wants to be the highest paid defenseman in the team, if you bump it up to $10 million, I think that's a fair offer too. And again, it's an awful lot of money to leave on the table when it's guaranteed money.
Yeah, well, we'll see where it goes. It's funny you mentioned 9.5 that Noah Dobson made, because Mark Dumont, the Canadiens writer, tweeted out that he ran some numbers, did his own homework, and did some comparables, and he said he got to about 9.7.
Mm-hmm.
So, all things being said, the on the ice is on the ice, and Canadiens fans think the world, justifiably so, of Lane Hutson and what he's worth. I think that it's going to come in at a number that won't shock at this point Canadiens fans, or maybe it will, but it'll shock them in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to shock the rest of the league's fan bases when they see the number that Kent Hughes is able to come together with Lane Hutson's agent on, because let's look at it this way. Kent Hughes has, if you could point out to me a negotiation that he's lost so far, I'd love to see it. And this isn't Hutson against Kent Hughes. It's two sides that want to come together, but still, business is business. And I think that it will come, anywhere between 10.5 to 9.5 million, and I lean closer to 10 and under.
Yeah, Patrick Lane at 8.7 million, but that Hughes didn't negotiate that contract.
Right.
He acquired in a trade, and they got him for nothing, right? Basically, so they needed offense, and they took a risk. They brought him in, and they don't make the playoffs last year without Patrick Lane's goals on the power play. That's Ken Hughes said that after the season. Ended up being a good move. It got them over the hump last season, got them into the playoffs. Would they have signed Patrick Lane that much money themselves? No. If they want to keep him moving forward, which seems highly unlikely, he's not going to get $8.7 million again. So that he was the only guy who went above Suzuki. They have, Suzuki was their salary cap for a while. Nobody's going to make more than 7.875. And as I mentioned earlier, Caulfield 7.85 and Slafkovsky 7.6. And with Noah Dobson, there's an added value to being a right shot defenseman. That's just the way it is for whatever reason. David Reinbacher, I don't think the Canadiens select him 5th overall if he's a left shot. I've mentioned that before on the podcast for you. And, with Dobson, 6 years experience in the NHL, a veteran type player, was invited by Hockey Canada to the Olympic orientation camp, which means Hockey Canada thinks very highly of this guy also. Lane Hutson wasn't invited to the U.S. Olympic camp, partly because they already have a couple of smallish defensemen invited that are ahead of him. And they're not going to go with 3 defensemen playing against Team Canada who are under 6 foot tall. It's just not going to happen. So, again, we'll get back to it. It'll be interesting to see if he's willing to sign for between 9 and 10 million.
Well, time will tell. And what I love, it's even amazing that, that it's all everyone's talking about, but it feels different this year into previous years when you're talking about previous contract negotiations, it's not very pressure packed at all. Because
the Canadiens are in no rush. I mean, as I said, the ball's in their court at this point, right? They hold the cards. Like they're, after next season, the maximum contract is 7 years also, right? So they're holding all the cards right now. And, Lane Hutson, you asked how much he's involved. Hopefully he's not involved in it that much. That's why you pay agents. Hopefully his dad's not involved in it too much either. We've seen, him getting in a bit of hot water with comments on a podcast. Let your agents do the work, and they'll come to him and say, this is what we got, and we think this is fair. And then, you agree to it. Otherwise, you hire other agents if you don't believe they've negotiated a deal that you like.
So that's the latest on the Lane Hutson front.
It's interesting, too. One last thing. It's interesting, too, that it's Cortex Management that he used to have. It was his company. That's who he's negotiating with now for Lane Hutson.
It's funny, as someone who led the firm essentially is going against his understudy now. Yeah, it's very funny. I wonder how that's going. I would actually love to see how that negotiation takes place, like just to be a fly on the wall. So that's the latest on the Lane Hutson front. Stu, I'm just going to ask you, plain and simple: is old school hockey back?
The Ottawa Senators think it is. I mean. Right. They hit from behind on Newhook, which started everything, from a guy who has like 6 games of NHL experience. and then puts a beating on Alex Carrier, who comes to his rescue, valiantly comes to his defense, and then all hell broke loose after that, right? But the Canadiens showed that if teams like the Ottawa Senators want to play old school hockey, we can play that. Mm-hmm. The Xhekaj brothers, Jaden Struble, I remember interviewing his university coach. Now, there's no real fighting in university hockey, right? They wear a full cage. But he said to me, he says, you don't want to piss Jaden Struble off. And we saw what a pissed off Jaden Struble can do against the Senators. I mean, we saw when he blows a fuse, it's look out. And the Xhekaj brothers, a tag team act, right? And Josh Anderson, you got Josh Anderson there too. So if teams want to play old school hockey against the Canadiens, they can. And you look back to the Canadiens dynasty years, and not comparing this team to the dynasty years, at least not yet. Broad Street Bullies, when the Canadiens beat the Broad Street Bullies in the mid-'70s in the Stanley Cup final, that sort of changed hockey. The Flyers had won a couple of years in a row, and the NHL, like a goon hockey works, right? The Flyers are winning, and then the Canadiens went in with their skill, but they also had Larry Robinson, and they had tough guys who could handle the Flyers, and they won. And it sort of changed the way hockey was evolving at that point. And the Canadiens are in a great spot where they have so many talented players like Lane Hutson and Demonov and Caulfield and Suzuki. And then they have the Xhekaj brothers, and they have Anderson, and they have Jaden Struble. So if you want to play that way, the column I wrote after the game against the Senators said they won on the scoreboard and they won in the alley. And the Senators tried to goon it up, and then they lost all the fights that resulted from the goonery. So moving forward for the Canadiens, I was playing old timers hockey last night, and we were talking in the room, and one of my buddies came and said, finally, we're beating up the other guys instead of us always getting beaten up. And I'm sure a lot of Canadiens fans felt that way watching that game.
Well, you know what? And I'm sure the Canadiens themselves, they felt good about it after, because
it's a bonding game without a doubt. And they're in Quebec City for a few days together at the same time, right? It was perfect timing for them to have it. And they won, and they smoked them 5-0. Like as I said, they won every facet of that game.
Well, the biggest thing for me was, I remember when Shea Weber was brought in, and that was a problem with the Canadiens before also, was just, not playing tough hockey. And Shea Weber gets brought in, and everyone says nobody is going to touch Carey Price anymore. Nobody. And he still continued to get ran because, Shea Weber didn't really do anything about it.
He was beyond the point of his career he was going to fight.
Exactly. And, you were going to eat a couple cross checks in the lower back for sure in the playoffs. But the Canadiens didn't make the playoffs every year with Shea Weber. So now you see the Canadiens, it just really looked like they said, we've had enough. It's enough. Enough's enough. We're not this young, fun, exciting team anymore. We're freaking men, and we're going to destroy anyone who tries to mess with us, which was nice to see.
I'll always remember that game when Montembeault got run against the Devils, I think, right? And nobody did anything.
Yep. Remember
that at the Bell Center? He got run over, and everybody just stood around and watched, and nobody did a thing. And that spoke volumes about that team back then in the final days of Dominique Ducharme, right? There was nobody to come around. And, you don't want Josh Anderson having to do all the fight. You don't want one guy to have to handle everything. And Michael Pezzetta, bless Michael Pezzetta, but he couldn't play a regular shift, right? Like he was effective on the 5 minutes a game he played, and he'd lead the team in hits and everything. But now they got guys who can play a regular shift and be policemen. And I wrote a column yesterday comparing Florian Xhekaj to Shane Corson, because I was thinking, like, when was the last time the Canadiens had a guy like Xhekaj? And probably Shane Corson, a guy who could play the game, could score goals, could be physical, and could fight when he had to fight, and wasn't hesitant to fight anybody. And they have that guy now in Florian Xhekaj. And it's the toughest decision they're going to have after tomorrow night's game is, what do they do with Florian Xhekaj? Marty St. Louis talked about they need sandpaper, they need grit. He brings a ton of it. But, it looks like there's only that one forward spot open, and Kapanen seems to have earned that spot. And they're not going to want Xhekaj as an extra forward sitting up in the press box. So I think he probably starts the season in Laval. But if there's an injury, or if they realize, we can't really trust Patrick Laine 5-on-5, we can't play him, or Kirby Dach, we realize that's just not happening with him, I think Florian Xhekaj is the first guy that gets called up.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's funny because I remember I ran into Habs Fan TV back in May, or was it April? Anyways, it was during the Laval Rocket playoff run, and Florian Xhekaj scored this incredible goal through the a toe drag on a rush. It just roofed it over a goaltender, and they asked me my thoughts on him. And yeah, there was the showmanship, whatever, because it's Habs Fan TV. But at the end, I did say they asked me, do you think he's going to start the season with the Canadiens? And I said, well, I think he's going to make their decision very hard, like his brother did. I think he's going to. I don't think they want him to start the season on the Canadiens, but I think he's going to force his way there. And I think that if he does play on Saturday night, forget the extracurriculars that are just bound to take place with the team that the Ottawa Senators are going to be icing. Forget that. If he goes out there and scores 2 goals, that's a tough decision for Martin St. Louis. And I know that, Kapanen's been fantastic this camp, and, he's earned his spot, but it's who earned it more, I guess, and what the team needs. And I really think I'm going to stick to those guns, and I'm going to say he's going to force his way onto this team because he has just shown that, yes, it's against half rosters, but he's not afraid of anyone.
No,
he's not scared of anyone.
Fighting Nicholas Deslauriers, and I spoke with Josh Anderson about this the other day, and I said, because Josh Anderson was sort of like Florian Xhekaj when he came into the league, right? With Columbus, he was a big tough guy, and he says, I think I fought 7 times. You said during my first season, and I said, do you remember a welcome to the NHL type moment in a fight? He says, yeah, in the preseason when I got my orbital bone broken. And he says, it's coming into the league, and he said he was really impressed that Florian Xhekaj would fight with Nick Deslauriers. He lost the fight, but he hung in there against arguably probably the toughest guy in the NHL, who's got a lot of experience in fighting, and he did well for himself. And then he won the 2 fights, against the Senators. He did really well. I went to I think 3 Laval games last year, and he stood out every game. Like Marty St. Louis was saying, you got to be noticed in training camp. He's been noticed. He was noticeable the games I went to in Laval last year. Like and he's playing on the 4th line too, mostly. So it's going back to Laval. Fans will be upset if he does go back to Laval, and I'm leaning towards that's what's going to happen, at least to start the season. Right. But to go down there and play with Owen Beck or Machar and like playing a top line and get lots of minutes and play the power play and do stuff he didn't get to do last season won't hurt him. And Pascal Vincent, when I asked him, at the development camp, rookie camp this year, what he liked most about coaching Xhekaj last season, he said he's so coachable. Like he talked about, face-offs. Okay, we didn't know if we were going to use him as a center or a wing last year, and the Canadiens they wanted to see him at center. He went at center, wasn't great at face-offs at the beginning of the year, really worked on it and became good at it. He said he's a really good kid. He wants to learn. He's coachable. He's everything that the Canadiens look for in this rebuild, right? When they say they want good people, they want coachable people. He's one of those guys. And they say, and making the decision hard. And Marty St. Louis has said several times at training camp, it's good to have tough decisions. It's the first time he's really had that since he came here. He says, I've got more talent now than we've had in the 3 years. I've got more options than I've had since I've been here. And it's a good situation to be in. It's good to have those tough decisions to make.
And, on the other side of it, Kapanen, and it's nothing against him. On the contrary, for them to be duking it out for this open spot, speaks volumes to Kapanen, because I didn't think personally he was all that impressive when he joined the Canadiens last year, and then he went down to Laval for the playoff run after. He was a fine player, seemed to be a bit behind, which is normal because, he's coming in late to the season. That's fine. But I just think that when push comes to shove, I think that they just need a group of guys to insulate, a Demidov, a Hutson, Suzuki to a certain degree, even though he could take care of himself, and Caulfield to a certain degree, that they're just not going to be pushed around. And they have these guys that aren't just, as you put it, policemen, that they could freaking play hockey. These are hockey players. I remember Arbor Xhekaj's rookie season. Everyone was so surprised when he would just like unleash a cannon from the point, and and it would go into the net, and everyone would be talking about, oh my God, this guy, who saw that coming? He's not a fighter that plays hockey. He's a hockey player that fights. There's a big difference between the two. And I think the Xhekaj brothers are that in spades. And it just goes back to you really want to look at it. Eastern European blood. That's what happens. You get brought up that way.
Well, you look at like fighters who can play hockey. It's a dying breed. I mean, Ryan Reeves in Toronto last year, the Leafs are basically shorthanded every time they put him on the ice. I mean, it was a job. I remember he was so slow. He couldn't play anymore. He was only there to fight. You can't afford to have guys like that in the NHL anymore. You have to be able to roll 4 lines. You have to be able to play everybody. And Florian Xhekaj is one of those guys. And, if he does start in Laval, you still have Anderson, you still have Arbor Xhekaj and or Struble going to be in the lineup to sort of be policemen. But the thing with Kapanen, and Marty St. Louis said it the other day, he has an NHL computer. Like his hockey IQ is at an NHL level already. I'm not sure if Florian Xhekaj is as far as being trusted defensively for Marty St. Louis. That's something they might want to have them continue to work on in Laval. I like that they have put Kapanen now with Demidov and Newhook instead of putting Demidov with Doc and Laine, 2 guys that are big question marks going into the season, along with your biggest star. I'd rather see him play with a young up-and-coming player like Kapanen and Newhook with his speed. That line makes sense to me at this point, more so than having him play with having Demidov play with Doc and Laine. So that's why I think Kapanen's got and he's basically coming into camp between Kapanen and Owen Beck. And Kapanen's moved ahead of Beck, and then all of a sudden the wild card was Xhekaj, right? And he's as you said, he's making the decision tough for them. He's really making the decision tough for him, and he'll get a big confidence boost from not being among the 24 guys that were sent down to Laval last weekend. Spending time, his team bonding thing this week in Quebec City, being part of that will be good for him. And again, I think he's as soon as there's an injury or a trade or whatever, he'll be up here. And I think to go down there and start the season in Laval playing, 17, 18, 20 minutes a game until they need him up here, I don't think that's a bad thing.
You know what? One thing I think will be, I don't know if it's a part of his game, but I'm just equating him with his brother, is that you talking about how he's such a coachable player. I think the biggest concern with Florian Xhekaj would be the concern is with his brother in that, he's just going to take a penalty at an inopportune time and let maybe sometimes let the moment get the best of him, which is totally fine. It's not even a knock. It's the guy's a 21-year-old kid stepping into the NHL. The moment would get to anyone. So I think that will be something that Pascal Vincent is going to hammer him about this season in Laval if he's to stay there for an extended period of time, because to hammer him, it's again not a negative connotation. We've talked about this, that there are some players that need a pat on the back and there's some that need a kick in the ass, and the Xhekaj brothers are not pat on the back type of guy.
Marty said, I'd rather have the guy I have to hold back than the guy I have to push. And
that's right.
The Xhekaj brothers are the epitome of that. And like with Arbor Xhekaj, Marty saying he's just got to learn to let the game come to him, not go looking for the big hit, not go looking for the fight. And it's going to be the same thing with Florian. But you got to love the Xhekaj brothers in this story. Parents that came here, for a better life in Canada, met in Hamilton, fell in love in Hamilton with nothing has come easy for them. Nothing, right? I mean, the mother works in a garage in Costco changing tires, and the father's a welder for a company that builds railway cars. Like nothing's come easy. To have 2 boys playing high level hockey, that's not cheap, right? So they've made sacrifices and done everything. And seeing his mother in the stands there crying when the 2 boys scored a game at the Bell in that preseason game was really something to see. So they're great. It's a great family story. The 2 boys bought their dad a nice Mercedes car last summer as a payback. They got together. The mother made the drive here for the game when the 2 boys were playing together for the first time at the Bell Center. You do not have to push the Xhekaj brothers.
No,
you got to hold them back. And as Marty St. Louis said, that's a good thing. These guys they wear their hearts in their sleeve. They'll defend their teammates. We saw that. I mean, how quickly they jumped in Ottawa. The 2 of them. It was like a WWE type thing, almost. But Canadians, physicality and intimidation will always be part of hockey. Fighting has become less a part of hockey, especially in the playoffs. But intimidation, Canadians were intimidated by Washington early in that series last year. That without a doubt that factored in with Tom Wilson running around and Ovechkin and guys hitting. It'll always be a part of hockey. It's a physical game, intimidation, always be a part of the game. And the Canadiens aren't going to be intimidated. And we saw that against the Senators, who basically dressed and now Senators have called up a bunch of guys from the American Hockey League that looks like they're going to dress tomorrow. They're going to probably dress a similar lineup again tomorrow night against the Canadiens. But doing that, and Arpon Bassey wrote a good column about this in The Athletic, saying that last game was a waste, that preseason game. Like, it was all penalty kill and power plays. Like, they didn't get it for both teams. The Senators came into that game with an obvious plan that they were going to try and goon it up, and they did, and then they lost that battle, which must have been really embarrassing for them. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do Saturday if they try and do that again. But again, the Canadiens at least have players now that, you want to play that way? Okay, we'll play that way.
Well, just looking at the Senators, because everyone's talking about how, the game from Monday. But frankly, the Ottawa Senators, they played last night, and they got utterly embarrassed by the St. Louis Blues. They lost 7-1 to the St. Louis Blues. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at the lineup right now and who was in that lineup, and they didn't dress a bunch of scrubs. I mean, Brady Tkachuk was in the lineup, Tim Stützle was there, Carter Yakimchuk, their first-round pick from a couple years ago, Arthur Kaliev, a signing that they made, Fabian Zetterlund was there, and then you had all the basic Ridley Gregg, and then basically all the goons that they had the other night in Quebec City. So I don't know what to expect from tomorrow night, honestly, because the Canadiens aren't ones to even that they've showed that they're not going to be pushed around. They've shown in the past that they don't get sucked into stupidity. Yeah. They have players that could be influenced to, but generally as a team, they really don't get sucked into stupidity. And, they frankly have the upper hand, because if Ottawa wants to run around and be stupid again, fine. But they also cranked them 5-0 while they were trying to do that. So the other night. So I don't know what to expect from tomorrow. I'm expecting it to be, a bit of nonsense. I think it's going to be a lot like that Canada-USA game, the first one at the Bell Center, where there's like maybe a couple fights in the first 2 minutes, and then let's play hockey. Let's get it out of the way, and let's play hockey.
Well, I'd say the whole thing was the other night started with Hayden Hodgson, running Alex Newhook from behind. And after the game, Newhook said that the game that Hodgson was chirping and wanting guys, like he came into that game looking to fight somebody. Mm-hmm. And I guess he figured by running Alex Newhook from behind into the board, somebody would fight him. And then Alex Carrier came in and, giving up a lot of size and a lot of weight and took a pounding as a result. And that's what really pissed off the Canadiens. And that's what led to everything else that happened on that night. So for the Senators, I mean, it was an embarrassing night. I thought for the Senators, Cousins with a two-handed slash at Demonov's wrist, that targeted the intent to injure. Paid the maximum fine allowable under the CBA, which is like $2,400. The guy's making $850,000 a year, and that pisses me off because it's one thing. It's a physical game, and guys are going to run. But when it's a premeditated, intentional attempt to injure a player, unsuspecting player too, like a guy who's doesn't see it coming. It came from behind. He looked right where the glove and the elbow pad are between, and he two-handed him right there. Like if an intentional intent to injure an unsuspecting player isn't worth a 1-game suspension, what is? A minimum of a 1-game suspension. To me, that should be an automatic, at least a 1-game suspension for an intentional attempt to injure.
That it's also just not a hockey play.
No, not at all.
That's it.
And the NHL is the only league that a lot like Nick Cousins. Nobody's buying tickets to go watch Nick Cousins play hockey. Mm-hmm. Demonov's a rising star in this league. The NFL does everything in its power to protect their quarterbacks. That's who people pay to go see. That's who has the success of the team. They put in rules and put everything in place to try and protect the quarterback. So imagine if an NFL player, the star quarterback's down on the ground after a tackle, and all of a sudden a guy comes and stomps on him, or does something like that. He's going to get suspended. Yeah. No, it's going to get suspended. And the NHL, I've never really understood how, and the NHLPA is guilty for this too, because they negotiate what the maximum fine is also. And the NHLPA and the player safety department with George Parros, a former goon, running it, they always rule in favor of the rat instead of the player who got hurt, the talented player who got hurt. And I've never been able to understand the reasoning behind that. If Nick Cousins gets suspended for one game, nobody's going to give a crap except for Ottawa Senator fans. And most people in the league are good. He deserves that for what he did. But with the old boys club that runs the NHL, that's never going to change.
Frankly, I think Ottawa Senators fans would be happy also, because they don't seem to, just from what I saw online, they don't seem to like Nick Cousins either.
Mm-hmm. Earlier in the game, he took a two-handed whack at Dobish's pads after he already had the puck. Like, he's going around he's I guess he figures that's how he's going to try and hang on to his NHL career, is being a rat and trying to injure guys. But again, I don't the $2,000 fine for a guy making $850,000 a year is not gonna, So you want to take out a young star and I wrote this when I called. You want to injure a young rising star in the NHL in the preseason? As long as you got $2,000 in your bank account, knock yourself out.
And you know what? The best part of it all was it wasn't on that play, but it was on the play. I think it was on the hit that Kirby Dach took.
Yeah, tackle. And then
and Pierre Hood, consummate professional broadcaster. And even he said the translation was another buffoon that has 10 games under his belt and isn't going to sniff the NHL again, and just running amok out there, just trying to make it about himself, trying to get noticed in all the wrong ways.
Tackled him and then dropped one glove and started punching Doc when he was down on the ice. And again, I don't understand how the NHL continues to allow this stuff and protect these guys as opposed to the players that people actually pay to go watch.
I'm going to err on the side of no here, but I wonder if the NHL now and frankly the refs, because when something like that happens and is able to make that much noise in a preseason game, there's going to be eyes, there forward on the teams involved. And I just wonder if things are going to come to a head for the Ottawa Senators if they try to, have a repeat performance of the other night. And frankly, how that translates into the regular season and how the refs, ref games with Tim Stützle making a fool of himself all over the ice, diving, and Brady Tkachuk with the way he plays. I just wonder if this will translate to anything. Again, I lean no, but it's always possible.
I had Senators fans on Twitter or whatever saying, "Oh yeah, well, Demidov was so hurt that he was playing golf the next day and he was fine." Well, okay, he wasn't. It turns out that he wasn't hurt, but the intent was to injure him. It was not a hockey play. It was an intent to slash him on the wrist and injure him. He failed in injuring him, but it was that's just it's too often in the NHL they punish the end result instead of the intent.
Yeah, instead of the action. It's a little ridiculous, but hey. You know what? I will say, yes, that game was kind of an embarrassment because it wasn't hockey on the part of the Senators, at least. But those things for the old school hockey fans are good because it still shows that the players, that rivalries mean something. Because I haven't seen hate on the ice like that between two teams like the Canadiens and Senators, like probably since the Boston Bruins, since that was a rivalry, the Bruins and Canadiens, or maybe even the last time that the Senators and Canadiens, they had a couple playoff series against each other. That was really the last time we saw a team.
It's almost like become like almost the Nordiques Canadiens too, just because the proximity of the two cities.
Yeah,
these two teams don't like each other. Brady Tkachuk wasn't even in that game for Ottawa. It'll be interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see what the lineups are tomorrow night, because I know before the Canes went for Quebec City, and Marty St. Louis was asked if he had spoken with the Senators about what kind of lineup you guys. What's the plan here? What are you guys dressing? And he said, "I haven't yet, but I'm working on it." So he had an idea of what was going to come. And Brendan Gallagher told the reporters in Quebec City after the game, "We saw their lineup. We knew what their plan was. We weren't shocked by what came." He says, "But we stuck together as a team. And as Marty St. Louis said after the game, he said we had a pack mentality, not just in the fights and defending each other, but we played the game like a pack.
Oh yeah.
And they really did, 5-man hockey, and that's a key in today's NHL.
And that's why, it may have been, it was definitely a waste of a game for the Senators, but that was great for the Canadiens. I mean, to talk about as much confidence as you could get from a preseason game, they got it from that game.
And whatever the Senators' plan totally backfired on them. As I said, they gooned it up, and then they got beaten up, and then they lost 5-0.
Yeah, it was utter embarrassment. So, hey, I'm going to be in the building tomorrow night.
It'll be interesting.
Listen, maybe we'll get one more last old school hockey before the season opener against the Toronto Maple Leafs next Wednesday. Stu, thank you very much for joining me, as you usually do.
All right, enjoy the game tomorrow night.
That was Stu Cowan. I'm Matt Ohayon. Before I go, just a little reminder to let you guys know that the Sick Podcast team will be at the Sports Card Expo tomorrow. That's in Laval. You can Google all the information. I don't know the address. And this isn't a planned read. I'm just kind of making it as I go. So, yeah, we'll be at the Sports Card Expo, meaning the whole behind-the-scenes team. Tony will be at the table. I'll be walking around, and I'll be at the table for a little bit. So if you're gonna be there, come by, say hi, and that's it. Have a good time. So thank you to all those who are watching and listening on a daily and weekly basis. We really appreciate you. We'll catch you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.